3. Why was this the film?
This is the culmination of everything we've ever done. Yes, 23 movies in the Infinity Saga comes to a conclusion tonight. You know, we developed, I'd said this earlier in another interview, we developed Infinity War and EndGame and essentially Far From Home kind of at the same time. So as we were writing them, I was informing the wonderful writers who were just behind us of this film, Chris and Eric, with Chris and Steve on Infinity War and EndGame, and we realized, because of the events that I will not spoil at the end of EndGame, that Peter has a journey to go through after that. And that so much of this movie and the culmination of his journey that started when Tony Stark plucked him out of his bedroom in Queens in Civil War is about stepping out of that shadow, stepping out of the shadow of Tony, stepping out of the shadow of the Avengers, and stepping up. And that's ultimately what this film is about, and why we wanted to cap the entire saga that started 11 years ago with Iron Man with Far From Home. You know, we really wanted to work with Jake for years. And as often happens in the MCU, the perfect thing comes along at the perfect time, and the perfect actor steps into the role. And that's what happened. We also knew that Tom was a big fan of Jake. And after we cast him, and maybe on the first or second day of shooting, Tom Holland came up to me and said, you know, last year I wrote sort of a wish list of everything I wanted to accomplish. I think his manager, Zage, said, write down what you want to accomplish, who you want to work with, and that'll help set your course as you pursue your career. And the first name he wrote on who I want to work with, and he showed it to me, Jake Gyllenhaal. Wow. And he didn't tell us that until after they had already started working together.
Wow, you are literally making dreams come true. Thank you so much for stopping to speak with us.
Thank you.
And congrats.
How's this balloon holding up?
It's great, 80 feet long.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, good.
It's great for selfies, too.
Okay, nice. I'll go do that.
All right.
Thanks for that, Kevin Feige. So, during an interview at the world premiere for Spider-Man Far From Home, Mr. Kevin Feige revealed some really interesting information that no one else has reported before, and that also no one else knew. So, in theory, Avengers Infinity War, Avengers EndGame, and Spider-Man Far From Home is a trilogy of movies in a way. Because during said interview, he said that during the process of Avengers 3 and Avengers 4, Far From Home was always going to be the end of the Infinity Saga, and the director for Spider-Man Far From Home knew this. So this is pretty groundbreaking stuff. It's the most interesting thing I've heard all day. It is really interesting that it's a trilogy of movies. So if you watched Avengers 3, you watched Avengers 4, you've got to watch Far From Home, because essentially how he explains it is Far From Home is the ramifications for whatever happened during EndGame, seeing as we're not talking about spoilers. So it is a very interesting bit of information. So what is good, YouTube? Warstu here with a video on the future of Marvel. We're going to talk about a new casting for a potential new villain in the MCU that is hot off the press, and we're also going to talk about what could be at Comic-Con or what couldn't be at Comic-Con. So subscribe to the channel to never miss any of the videos. So also in the same interview, it is interesting because recently Kevin Feige said they've been looking at Keanu Reeves for such a long time. And then he speaks about Tom Holland's relationship with Jake Gyllenhaal, that Tom Holland's always wanted to work with Jake Gyllenhaal, and it was on his goals for this year to work with Jake Gyllenhaal. And then Kevin Feige has said the same thing for Jake Gyllenhaal that he said for Keanu Reeves. We've always wanted to work with Jake Gyllenhaal. It was just the case of finding the right actor. So that is an unofficial confirmation that it is very likely, guys, that Keanu Reeves will be playing a part of the MCU in the future. So as we know, the director for Spider-Man Far From Home really wanted to slip Miles Morales into the DMs inside a Spider-Man movie in the future. So the future of Spider-Man is very interesting. So let's get into the video. So as we know, Spider-Man Far From Home comes out this coming Tuesday in most countries, but I've been told that it's also coming out on Wednesday in some places. As we know, there's so many countries in the world. So it's interesting. So it's coming out in the next few days, realistically. And it is the last Marvel-based movie of the year, comic book based. Why? Yes, we have the DC Warner Bros. Joaquin Phoenix Joker movie in October, but except for that is it. There's nothing else. What is more interesting to me is Kevin Feige didn't even acknowledge the fact on the Spider-Man Far From Home world premiere in LA that they're currently shooting their first movie for 2020 being the Black Widow movie. Now, what is interesting is we're going into San Diego Comic-Con this year, and to be honest, I was literally 99.9% going. I had press credentials, I had studio kind of seats for certain things in Hall H and stuff like that, but then I decided not to go, and it was such a cool idea, because what's happening now is it's kind of like Sony PlayStation not appearing at E3 this year. Like, literally no one is going to Comic-Con. So Sony will not be at Comic-Con this year, which is really bad, because Sony is behind the Morbius Jared Leto movie, which I cannot wait for. I was hoping for a first trailer or more information at Comic-Con, but seeing as Sony won't be there, we won't be getting any information. Into Spider-Verse 2 is 100% coming. That won so many awards, but I was hoping for some new information during San Diego Comic-Con, but seeing as Sony won't be there, there will be no information. But the big one is Spider-Man 3 is going to be a very big movie for Sony, because they license it, they distribute it, and it's made obviously by the MCU, and it's part of the MCU deal, and it's the last movie in the MCU deal, unless they've unofficially already agreed to extend it for X amount of movies. We don't have any info. So realistically, I was thinking maybe the deleted post-credit scene that wasn't posted with Spider-Man Far From Home, that's not in there. I was hoping that maybe we could get it at San Diego Comic-Con, but seeing as it's a Sony movie, Marvel wouldn't drop this information at Comic-Con because it's not their movie, although it's kind of technical, because yes, they make it, but they don't make the money off it. That's done by Sony and Columbia Pictures. So it is very interesting. So from that point of view, Comic-Con this year is going to be so boring, guys, because not only that, DC, Warner Bros are also not there. We've got like Wonder Woman movie to come, and they've got so much cool information to reveal, so that is not going to be there. So if you're a Marvel fanboy, yeah, cool, guys, that is the only studio at San Diego Comic-Con this year, which is pretty weird. Yeah, obviously there's some smaller studios, but the big studios are not attending it. So unofficially, we know the Black Widow movie is currently shooting. It's been shooting for 5 to 6 weeks, where we see Natasha Romanoff's standalone movie feature is currently shooting in Budapest, starring Scarlett Johansson. It's in official production, although Marvel Studios would not let her confirm that during the UK press junket for EndGame. He will not announce it even at Spider-Man Far From Home world premiere, even though we know that they're shooting for it. We've had images of her in the 2017 BMW, which is questionable whether it is a prequel, if it's set in the current timeline. Oh, but she died, but did she really? We don't know. So it is likely that Disney is saving this announcement for Comic-Con presentation, because let's be honest, guys, it's the only thing they can realistically reveal with footage. Now, it is interesting that they haven't revealed anything about any movie going forward till after Spider-Man Far From Home. So Spider-Man Far From Home officially comes out this Tuesday, so I'm presuming he means at San Diego Comic-Con. There are people saying that the official slate will be coming at Comic-Con, but there is no real information about that. As we know, Comic-Con is the 19th to the 21st, so we're still a few weeks out. So Spider-Man Far From Home would have been out a few weeks by the time we get to Comic-Con, so we could get some official information finally after that. So what is also interesting is we know from, movies that are definitely coming, that we do have Shang-Chi, which is going into production very soon, the Eternals movie, which Keanu Reeves has been linked to, also Angelina Jolie has been linked to. A lot of A-lister actors have been grouped to that movie. So one thing we do know is James Gunn is back on track at the helm of Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, not to be confused with Asgardians of the Galaxy, as they kind of said at the end of EndGame. James Gunn recently debunked this on Instagram stories when someone said, please don't call it Asgardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, and he said, don't worry, which is cool, because that's such a bad name for a third movie in the franchise. If they do want to reboot that, then yeah, sure, they can do that, but obviously let this franchise with the original OG cast have a third movie with the original name. So we know production will be going into shooting potentially next year, after James Gunn has finished shooting Suicide Squad. Volume 2. Although there are rumors that James Gunn is actually going to be one of the people behind the new DC worlds. That will be interesting if he had a big part there, because as we know, originally James Gunn was supposed to have a huge part with the cosmic being side of Marvel Phase 4, if they do go ahead and call it that, before the whole kind of the old history tweets came up and cost him his job. So as we know, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 is supposed to be a story evolved around finding out who Rocket's father is. He's supposed to be the High Evolutionary, who has rumored to be Mark Hamill, but I don't know if there's any validity to that story. That is pretty interesting. We're supposed to find out that Drax's daughter, Moondragon, is actually alive, which is pretty cool. Rocket's gonna meet up with Lila, his obviously otter, I guess you could say sentient being, long lost lover, and that's rumoredly supposed to be played by Lady Gaga's voice, which will be interesting because obviously Bradley Cooper does Rocket's voice, so that would be very interesting. So that movie's also apparently going to have Beta Ray Bill featuring in it, who has had, I guess you say, Easter egg cameo roles in Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 1, Thor 3, so that also will be interesting. Thor himself is supposed to be in that movie. Chris Hemsworth did say he was taking a year out of acting because he's done a lot of movies recently, most recently doing Men in Black, the new Men in Black movie. So that would be interesting if he was in it. And also Adam Warlock, there's so many rumors, Keanu Reeves, my boy Zac Efron's going to be playing him. So it is very interesting. There is a lot of stuff that Marvel could reveal at San Diego Comic-Con, or they could wait to Disney 23 in August. But I don't feel like Marvel is going to pay a lot of money to attend an event they don't own. Obviously, they own Disney 23, so they do, but the studios do pay a lot of money to attend and have the time slots on Hall H. And also, Doctor Strange 2 has been rumored so many times to start production this year, but now unofficially it's apparently shooting next year, which would be pretty funny if they did. It would be interesting. So Scott Derrickson, who directed the first entry into Benedict Cumberbatch's starring franchise, will return for the sequel, with multiple villains having been tossed around the rumor mill, from Nightmare to Mordo Barrett to so many different characters. Although I do feel like Doctor Strange 2 will fit perfectly into Marvel's time slot. But will Kevin Feige reveal this during San Diego Comic-Con 2019? It's a different story. I do think that potentially the person on the casting list could be for Doctor Strange 2, potentially. Black Panther 2, now we know that Ryan Coogler will be returning, reportedly. And also, it is expected that Michael B. Jordan, who played Killmonger, who technically died, is also returning for this movie. But it is interesting because if they are going to rush and bring Storm in, then we could have the Storm relationship with T'Challa. That also could be very interesting. As we know, the Shang-Chi movie is also currently starting pre-productions, hiring costume designers and stuff like that, which generally doesn't happen until 6 months before a shoot starts. So it's looking very likely that Shang-Chi and the Eternals will be shooting this year for hopefully a release next year, which would be pretty cool. This will be the first Asian martial arts movie that we have had ever in the MCU, so it will be very, very interesting if that does happen. Black Panther 2, not a lot is known about the story. Obviously, Black Panther disappeared during Infinity War and EndGame, and then he reappeared, so it's going to be very interesting to see where they take Shuri, where they take Black Panther 2. So recently, in the last half an hour or so, I was revealed some information about a new casting notice that does seem to be official. So it reads like this: Untitled Marvel Studios feature, New York casting director, New York casting assistant, etc, etc. So it says they're calling this person Will, mid-20s, Chinese American, must be able to do a standard American accent. Now, the first movie you would think of is Shang-Chi, because it's asking for a Chinese American, and I'm not really sure of the origin of Shang-Chi in the sense of will MCU change its origin completely. But then again, like I said, this could be for the villain of Doctor Strange 2, which could be someone like Neymar or Nomar. I mean, literally every time I say that name, guys, you say I'm saying it wrong. He could be playing that. It could be one of the Shang-Chi characters. It's definitely a mystery. Shang-Chi, for me, does look pretty likely. But then again, it could be a casting for Nightmare in obviously Doctor Strange 2. I would love to see Nightmare come to the MCU. So that is very interesting. It was posted by a really decent insider who I've used a lot of times before, and they were right about most of the things they've said before. So it is looking likely that maybe that's a casting for the Master of Kung Fu, maybe some relation to Shang-Chi, maybe. Not too sure. I wouldn't really say it's a new villain, but maybe it could potentially be a villain. So that is all the updates we've got about Phase 4, but like I said, guys, nothing is confirmed or verified at this moment, because realistically, guys, no one knows anything about Phase 4. I don't even think Kevin Feige knows anything. Okay, obviously Kevin Feige does know something, but for some reason, he is being very secretive, but he did say after Spider-Man Far From Home has released, they will talk about Phase 4, because obviously it's a trilogy, Avengers 3, Avengers 4, Spider-Man Far From Home, and then they can talk about Phase 4 stuff. So guys, like always, let me know everything that you guys know and want to know down below. Any requested videos down below if you do want to work with me or do any collabs or any kind of requested video, any Fan Theory Thursday videos, I will be starting up very soon. That would be much appreciated, and I will catch you in another video very soon. Catch ya later.